Welcome back, listeners, to the Inspired Writer Collective podcast. Today, I'm here with Ananya Mody, and she is a screenwriter for Netflix, and now she's gone on to start her own adventure. And so I'm so excited to have you here today to talk to us about what that process looked like, what all you learned, all the chances you took, the ways that you stood up for yourself, found your voice, and now how you're helping other writers do the same.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a really nice, warm introduction. And I'm glad to be here. I'm so happy to chat. And I'd love to give like a nice perspective on screenwriting to all the writers who are writing great books and may want to option their rights and write the screenplay to that later. So that's a different process. The world,
It's
worlds
certainly
apart.
something people dream about, though. Like just the other day, yesterday, I saw someone posted on Threads, like, what's your big dream for your book? Like, what would it be? Is it selling a certain number of copies? What is it? And so many of the comments were having it turned into a movie, having it turned into a series or a show.
Well, I get that because I mean the mass appeal is much bigger, right? It's mass appeal vis-a-vis a book which is just energy consuming in today's day and age. But having worked on adaptations, a few of them, some successful, some having gotten stuck in development hell, which is what we call shows which just get stuck for years and years in the writer's room and just don't go anywhere. It's things change a lot in the process. And one thing I tell all writers, because I've seen this and my heart has broken for her, but a writer whose book we were adapting, she couldn't deal with the changes that we were making all the time. So, and I get it, but
it's a totally different medium, right? What keeps a reader still reading is different maybe than what keeps a viewer still watching. And you have to move at a different speed. And so then some of those beloved moments that you might have in your writing just get cut and swept out or changed for more excitement or more just action on the screen. And I think that it can be hard for people. But I'd love to hear more about how you got into screenwriting.
Oh, wow. Good question. That was never the plan. I didn't intend to be a screenwriter. I thought, much like all our listeners, that I would be an author too at some point in the distant future because it's not like a realistic career or dream, or so you're told, right? Growing up. I finished my degree in finance and accounting and management and all those sensible things. And I thought I'd be a financial journalist because, that would have a certain amount of writing thrown into the mix. But that also, actually, I learned that financial journalists don't make money either. So who makes
Only
money?
the topmost people of whatever industry seem to make the money. It's never anything I've done.
Me neither. Right. Yeah, that was the plan. And then one day I was lying in bed with a torn thing in my foot. So much for a writer's vocabulary. And I saw this program that Disney Plus, or back then 21st Century Fox or Star, was running to train new writers. So they wanted to train you for 6 months and then put you into the company to write for their shows from the studio's perspective. So they'd put you into the production house writing rooms to make you kind of like a bit of a spy, honestly, so that you know what the writers of the production house are doing. So, because how it works is that you have the writers at a production house writing, and then the material comes to the studio. The studio vets all of that, gives its feedback, all of that. But they hoped to shorten the time between the production house and the studio by having the studio's perspective in the room.
Yeah, I see that
itself.
totally as like a cost-saving metric, right?
Exactly. So I guess they saved days by paying us a salary, which was decent by industry terms, but definitely in terms of the back and forth, they're probably saying they thought they would save a lot, but the writers weren't looked upon very favorably in the room. But I wouldn't know that, but I digress. Let's go back to chronological order. Got a bit of a flash forward. This was, so I applied for the program and I got through. There were about 3-4 rounds of interviews and that. And for 6 months, they trained us at Star at Disney. And they taught us all sorts of writing tips, tricks, and methodologies because we were writing for like general entertainment channels, is what we call them in India, GEC, which is where you have essentially the soap or the telenovela format of like 24 minutes every day, 5 days a week. So you really need people to be churning things out fast. But they also wanted the quality to be decent. So they hoped that these tips and tricks would sort of help you advance at a faster rate with a certain level of quality. And I didn't live up to that quality standard, as I was informed after 6 months.
Was the background they gave you helpful, or was it really insufficient for what they were asking you to do? Like, how much did you carry that with you? Like, how helpful was that, like, background knowledge and training, I guess, as they called it?
To be perfectly honest, I've never used those methodologies again in my life. I haven't looked back to them. Yes. Because I don't write to churn out. I write fast. I deliver on time. But who's writing to like, oh, here are 5 romance and chemistry techniques. Are my characters in love? Like, I need to feel it inside me. I was fired from that program 6 months in, and then I was young. I was 22 back then, and wondering what do I do with my life now. So I did the obvious thing, and I went on a baking spree. That's my midlife crisis.
Delicious.
And through all this, one of my friends noticed my crisis, and he was like, "Look, I'm working for this director who's directing an Amazon show. Season 1 is on Amazon. It's India's first OTT show. And we're directing season 2 and they're writing season 3. And they're looking for an intern in the writer's room. So do you want to try your hand at it?" I was like, "Sure, I've already been fired once. What are they going to do? Fire me again? They're even on me." So I went in for the meeting, and it was honestly quite intimidating. The man, he was a great writer, but he was a scary individual. So I was fairly intimidated in that meeting, but I got the gig. But I think it was because I submitted a writing sample beforehand. So they kind of read it. So they're like, okay, she's a typical writer. She's better on the page than she is in person.
I feel like that's what Shonda Rhimes said in her masterclass that I've taken. And she talked about how like writers will come and pitch to her with their, scenes or whatever. And she said she doesn't really care about the quality of the pitch as far as like whether they're looking down at the page because they're so nervous and they're just reading, exactly what they wrote. Because like same kind of thing. She knows like it's in the quality of like the output, the scene. Like, did you hit the beats? Did you, show the emotion? Did you capture everything? Is it, captivating versus like how well does this person, show up and advocate for themselves?
Exactly. We're writers for a reason. We like being behind the camera. And I interned with them for a few months, and it was, I think, the best learning experience of my life because you just get to be around these great minds doing their thing, and you get to observe their magic. Wow. It's, of course, a role that I could take up only as a position of privilege because they pay you a pittance. And definitely, if you can, go for it. Like, even 6 months of just observing the dynamics. And sure, you see the craft in practice, but what you really see is how a room of writers works together. If you want to work in TV, which always entails a big room, it's important to understand how to put your point across or how other people receive your point, what things you trigger. It's understanding character, understanding human behavior, but live with actual consequences. That was great. And then our showrunner wanted to write 2 episodes by himself for the season. The last 2.
Now, is the showrunner the intimidating guy that you met with initially? Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes, yeah. But over the months, we had developed a good relationship. I was still scared of him. I think for all the 5 years, 6 years that we worked together, I was always like slightly scared of him a little bit. We got on well, and he wanted me to do a first draft of both the episodes. And he was like, just give me a skeleton, don't do what you can. I'll take it from there. I said, sure, okay. Well, yeah, I guess. What do I have to lose, right? Like, I'm
See, it
just an
amazes
intern
me that you
anyway.
had that mindset though. Like the whole like, oh yeah, just write up, baseline, outline, whatever skeleton version of this thing for the showrunner who, oh my gosh, like I feel like that would intimidate most people. Like for you to already have the confidence at that point to be like, I mean, how long have you been there at that point?
4
Like
or
that's
5.
insane to me. I would just be so fraught with nerves.
But I absolutely was. But the thing is, I couldn't turn it down, right? I can't be like, no. It wasn't an option given to me. It's like, this is your job. I'm asking you to do this. You do it. I find. But I remember I was so nervous that when the first round of feedback on it came to me, I didn't have the courage to look at it by myself. I called up a friend of mine and said that comments have come in. I'm going to read each and every one out loud, and you have to listen to them with me. I don't care if you're violating any NDAs at this point. Like,
I do this a lot.
Yes. And yeah, my showrunner liked it. He liked both the episodes, so he decided to give me writer credit on them. And
well, you supposed to
yeah, I got very lucky.
To put yourself out there, and granted, I understand what you mean. You didn't have a choice. It was kind of like, what did you have to lose? Yeah. But like, there's some amazing opportunities that come about sometimes in life, and it's like you just do your best, and then you got essentially your first writer credit out of that, right? It's a bit cool.
Yeah. It was wonderful. Yeah. I'm really grateful that I had him at that point in my life to recognize that, because I know so many writers who've done the time, who've done the work, but they're not out there. Mm-hmm. But yes, so that was a great journey. And after that, we worked on a bunch of projects together. So this Amazon one, a bunch that obviously are stuck or will never get made, we worked on for like 2 years, 3 years. Then this Netflix one, which with season 1, season 2 comes out in a couple of days. So on Netflix. And yeah, one for Disney Plus, which was quite funny because one of the people who is part of the writing team. I know you're the one. Yeah. In fact, I'll one-up it. It wasn't person from the writing program where I was fired. It was one of the people who ran the writing program from which I was fired.
You could do them.
Yeah, exactly. I had to rewrite her story. So
I love that for you. I love that full circle moment.
It's yeah, I feel like it's like Schadenfreude, right? It's like.
So then I know at some point you reached sort of a dead end with that. Why? What happened as far as like, I know before we talked about the loss of voice and the fact that in that industry, everything has to be so uniform despite who's writing. How do you control that or work within those constraints, I guess?
I think working within those constraints is the easy part. Because when you're casting a writer's room for a show, you're very deliberate that people have had varied experiences but share the same value system. So even if you're writing a show which is set in like a super patriarchal context, then you'd hire people understand that mindset. I'm not saying share that mindset, but have a certain understanding of it. You wouldn't hire someone like me, for example. So we could align on most areas in that way. And what also helps in having a unified voice, literally, is that you have a showrunner whose literal job is to unify all the voices across 10 episodes. And also, we would get in specialized dialogue writers who would go in and rewrite the dialogue based on which part of the country our characters were from.
For word choice and stuff, like that's not a common phrase here. They would say this instead as a customary greeting that's just with a friend or that kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah, things like that. So the literal voice
Mm.
and the thematic voice of the show
Okay.
weren't as much of a problem, but the constrictions, oh my God, because I mean, we all know about the writer's
Mhm.
strike of Hollywood, and that was so important. And in India, we're 10 steps behind them, and 10 is me being very kind. So it was like we were signing all these contracts, but never seeing money. If the platform didn't feel like giving you feedback just yet, you didn't get paid because the their next payment tranche was linked to approval
Oh
from their end.
gosh.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And then because it's a gig economy, everyone's really insecure. So they're like, are you going after my job? Like, what are you trying to do? Don't step
Mm.
on my toes. And then there's this, because everything works in relationships, it's more about who you know than how well you can actually do the job. They don't ever, they never mean to you to your face. So they're maybe not going to make your project, but they'll keep you hanging. Like, we'll get back to you. It's such a great idea. We're just figuring out where to put this in
Mhm.
our slate. And I'm like, just tell me it doesn't fit. It's fine. I'll go into my bedroom and cry, but that's
Let
okay.
me
Like,
move on
what
to
can I do?
something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once people get insecure, they start taking out their tempers on you. And of course, eventually I did
Mhm.
develop my own voice and bits of that started creeping into the writing. And that did cause friction too between me and my mentor. And it was fairly evident that we had kind of outgrown each other in that sense, that we couldn't creatively collaborate without one of us, that is me,
Mhm.
suppressing her voice and the way she wanted to do things. So we had to call it quits after a certain point together. And I realized anywhere in this industry, this is what one had to put up with. If you want to, like, you see people with like great shows coming out everywhere. I'm like, what have you like suffered through to get here? It's one thing to put in hard work. I'm completely on board. You have to
Yeah.
sometimes pay your dues, right? For like 10 years. Perfectly fair. Do you have to get exploited in the process of doing that? That's that's not okay. Like, we can't conflate struggle
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
exploitation. That led to me, well, not exactly stepping away from the industry. I'm still looking for great projects to do out there, things where my voice can really shine. But I've been exploring other things. I taught English in Madrid for a year. I moved to Barcelona and digital nomaded and while writing. And now I live in Mexico City, where I'm writing one project remotely for a production house based in India, but I'm also like developing my own business, which comes from the same sense of how I felt throughout
Mhm.
my whole time during
Yeah. Tell
my
us more
writing
about
phase,
that.
which was, yeah. The thing about being in an industry like film is that on the outside,
Mhm.
it's so glamorous, right? Everyone wants to
Mhm.
be doing this. You can buy into that. And you buy into the fact that, oh, everyone's working 18 hours a day, so I'll work 18 hours a day. That's fine. Okay, and no one's getting paid, so maybe it's okay if I
Yeah.
don't get paid too. And your mind will really go to this great extent to protect you. And I felt this constant sense of frustration that I'm supposedly doing this great thing, which is like, oh, working in this amazing industry and writing these cool shows and, going for these parties. But I was like, there's so much more to life. The reason I got into film was because I get to live so many different lives with so many different characters and so many different worlds. One day I'm writing about like the richest, poshest family living in like the world of Succession. Another day, like someone in the
Mhm.
boondock, like pulling out their guns. This is why I write, because I am unfortunately in one human body. I'm constrained,
Yep.
and but in fact, I felt just as constrained as I did before. I'm like, I can't live like this. If I'm stuck for 18 hours in a day in a room, I'm going to run out of life experiences to put
Oh,
into
sure,
my
because you're just in a
writing.
room all day. You're not having new experiences to pull from.
Exactly. I can read and watch movies and do research, but
Yeah.
all of that secondhand. I'm not going to channel that
Mhm.
emotion. So I was like, I don't fit into this industry, do I? Like this, I'm not buying into this myth anymore. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
drinking the Kool-Aid. And but outside too, all my friends and family, they were not in film and they were working like proper jobs and living like good lives, making good money, advancing in their career. But I'm like, I don't want that either. So what is the middle ground to this? And that's this idea of belonging came to me. I'm like, where do I as a person belong? What is my place? Not just in terms of like careers, because that can be figured out, right? There are 100 ways to make money. But how can I live with sense of peace within myself and with those around me? And then I reflected on all the travels I've done since I was quite young. I took my first solo trip at the age of 19 when I went to work on an organic farm in Northern California after quitting a corporate job. There were people from all over the world. There was a British girl doing her thesis on dysmorphia in Mormons post birth. There was a Danish girl going to alternative school to just study like under the forest and trees. And I was like, there's so many different ways to live life. And maybe if I feel so much at home with people doing all these different things, maybe that's what I should be looking at, as a way of living life. And that stayed with me. And many years later, when I was thinking about what next after film, I revisited that experience in my head. Like, I've always felt a sense of belonging away, where I've had this blank canvas to create a world around me, which is something travel provides, right? Or something even writing provides, because you're creating this world around you. Like travel and writing are essentially the same activity, just
One
one
is
is
physical
at
and one is
your time
mental.
traveling on
Yeah,
a desk.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I saw that when I'd lived in Barcelona, or not that much in Barcelona, but in Madrid, especially, I created the sense of home. I wasn't actually living in Madrid, right? I was living in my world in Madrid. I had curated my people. I knew the places I loved and I frequented those. I had a relationship with my past, like all my friends back home, and I liked who I was. I liked who I was becoming in these new environments. And that stayed with me again. So when I moved to Mexico City, I experienced this all over again. Yeah. Wow. This is how one creates a life of belonging, by getting out of your environment and recreating it for yourself more intentionally. So that you're not a product of your environment, but your environment is a product of what you put out there. And that has fueled my new business as such, which I'm thinking about, where I'm like, I think I know how to do this. And now I'm trying to figure out how to bring my methods and turn it into a repeatable process so that other people from other walks of life who've been feeling like, oh, we don't fit in, can be yanked out of their surroundings and like guided through the process of creation, which I did by myself. And, there were failures, there were successes, there were ebbs and flows. But if people can avoid, you're going to fail anyway, but if someone can guide you through it and talk you through it, oh, that would be a dream. That's just what I
Yeah,
want to
I
do
can
for
very much
people.
relate. It's one of the core themes that runs through the memoir I'm writing, because when we moved here to Colorado, I had just left my career as a forensic scientist. So I was transitioning from being the breadwinner and going to work, 40 hours a week to being the stay-at-home mom to then 2-year-old. And when we moved here, we were living in an RV. So it felt really isolating. We were in a brand new state and I felt really lost. And I had to go through that same sort of struggle that you talk about of like, okay, how do I curate that world of community and belonging around me? Because in the past, in college, it was just like, oh, my classmates become my friends. Or when I worked a job, it was like, oh, my coworkers, some of them become my friends and my social network. But I was a stay-at-home parent in a box. So it's like there was no one around for me to like just naturally commune with. And so I really had to go seek it out for myself. And like you said, there were some failures. Like I tried doing roller derby for a bit, but because I had also just gotten sober, there was, a lot of drinking involved around the kind of like after hours and things. Like I realized that the unity and the closeness that community felt with each other was in the outside hours, not in like the skating time, So then I was like, well, I can't really fit in with this group. And I ended up, going to some sober recovery meetings where those people became, my friends and everything else and like built my community around those things. So, but it's tough. And there's definitely that level of, self-reflection that you have to do. When you talk about like what do you bring from your past with you as far as like keeping connected with, past friendships, like I lost a lot of my friendships when I left my career. It was a very dramatic way that I had to leave. And so there were a lot of bridges burned and there were a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of people that just didn't want to talk to me anymore. And so, I don't blame them. They did not understand. I couldn't talk about the, real details of why I was leaving. So to them, it looked one way when it was actually something different. But that's in the memoir if people are interested in that story. Yeah. So yeah, it can be really hard to figure out like, what do I take of even my habits, right? Like I knew that I had this past habit of like socializing by, revolving it around alcohol. And certainly here in Colorado, I could go to, different things, events at the breweries and meet people, but I just did not want my life to look like that. I was trying to get healthier. I had come out of a really bad mental space, physical health space, and I just didn't have room for that. And it can be really tough. And so I think that's great that you're providing some guidance for people about, how to kind of reflect on those things of what do you really want to bring forward with you? What will make you feel at home? What are those pieces that you absolutely need and need to find that in your new place? And what are those things that you're ready to move on from and grow out of? That's a lot of heavy lifting. That's a lot of work.
That is speaking the work. I'm just gonna guide them through it. I've done my work, I hope. But thank you for sharing that. That was very vulnerable of you.
And now you've created a resource using the hero's journey. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Writing, as we all know, is a very lonely process. And non-writers don't get it. And it's fine. It's not their job to get it if we wish we did, but I mean, they'd be writers too if they had the heads we had, right? When you feel so isolated, both physically and emotionally from all your people, like when you go out and they ask you, so how's your book coming along? And you can't exactly say that I'm stuck at this plot point because I have this idea, but it doesn't go with this guy's character. And if he does this, he'd be a different person. To bring in this guy to do this here, but it would be wrong. We have to go back and change things in like chapter 2 because it doesn't make sense.
They didn't
chapter
really
19.
want to hear all that. They just want to making progress. But what does progress look like anyways when you do so many rounds of drafting and rewrites and edits? It's like, yep, still editing. Or it's like, I thought was editing. Now I'm just fully rewriting.
Yeah, exactly. So this resource I'm trying to create is for our writing community. How can we find a sense of belonging throughout our writing process? And our writing process essentially emulates the hero's journey, right? So every journey in life we take, the journey from here to my dining table is the hero's journey too. How, this free this sorry, excuse me. This resource essentially leads our writers from their starting point of deciding that of having the wish, the desire, the deep internal desire that I want to write, and not acting on it, to having the call to action, to battling between the two, to finally breaking into act one and saying I'm gonna do this, to fun and games, to rising action, and raising the stakes, all the 12 steps of the hero's journey, but through the lens of belonging. So at this point in your life, okay, you need to belong to yourself. You need more self-trust. How can you build self-trust? You don't just build it within yourself, because we're interdependent as a species, right? So how do you look outside of you? How do you build spaces that you can trust around you, so that you're like, I'm not able to think today. I don't know what I want to do. I'm feeling scared. Oh, I feel good around green spaces. I know that there's a spot in the park that I love, so I'm going to go there. It's ritualizing your writing, and that's belonging to yourself, belonging to the place. So then when you're coming to fun and games, you probably need to meet more people. You need more inspiration. You have to watch things. You need to have conversations. So what activities can we do here so that that part of your life is kind of activated? And then it's the return home, because gone on the same journey as your characters, and you've gone on your own journey, because it's a very thinking of the politically correct word here, but I don't have one. So, but it's an experience where you're living through multiple personalities, right? At the same time, you grow, right? You grow through every project you've written. You are a different person. And I don't know if you've ever felt this, okay? But I have, because I'm not a very good human being. Is
I feel like I'm going to relate to whatever you're about to say. Go ahead.
okay. That makes two of us. So when you've been through all these changes, and even if they're in your head, mostly in your head, and people have lived the same life day in and day out, and you're at the other side of it, a different person, I'm kind of better than you.
Well, it's just they don't know how to see you a lot of times, especially if it's someone you've known a long time, family, long-term friends, whatever. It takes a while for them to upgrade their view of you to the way that you see you. Because like you said, it's so much internal growth, and it's not something that's easily reflected outward, but it's the way you view the world has changed, and the way your role in the world, and your space that you're willing to take up, and the ways that you're going to advocate for your value, your worth. And people then get surprised when all of a sudden, well, this person's pushing back on me. I don't really like that. Now, little boundary, or they've a little bit more, and they're telling me they're not going to drop everything to come help me do this. They're prioritizing themselves, or their writing, or their whatever. So I think
exactly that. You've grown, but they're stagnant, and you don't know. And it also comes from your insecurity, right? Will they relate to me? Will they see me, as you said, the way I am? So how do you determine who stays from your past, who goes? Like you said earlier, you lost, we all lose connections when we leave certain institutions, the workplace, school. But here it's about intentionality, right? Because physically we're usually in the same place. So how do you align your physical reality of your past and bring it into your present? So that is really important too. And the thing is, we know all this. We're making our characters do it day in and day out in our writing. We just don't use it in our day-to-day life, because, who takes their own advice?
Well, I've been an amazing resource for people to walk through. And it makes me think, I know you phrase it as when you first get that idea and you're just starting out, but also I could see people utilizing that tool when they feel resistant to their writing project, or if some people might call it writer's block, or just in a down season, right? To just reignite that interest, that passion, the reason you're doing it, because It may just be that you're
Sure.
under-resourced. You don't have the community that you need. You don't have particular resources or inspiration or any of that. And I know that you know this about our podcast platform. We're really big on community and supporting and trying to motivate people intrinsically, tapping into that intrinsic within yourself as a writer, through inspiration, through hearing these stories from people like you who have been in these writing industries, who have gone through it, and knowing that those struggles are not singular to you. Like, there are other people going through that same thing, but so much of the time we operate in a silo and we can forget that the
Yeah.
struggles that we're going through are struggles that are sort of universal to the writer experience.
Exactly. For sure. Exactly. That's why you create this podcast. And that's why we create art in general, right? It's because we want to see ourselves reflected and the darkest parts of ourselves reflected, which we feel like we can't communicate with others. Like, I had this really invasive thought about my mom, and I don't even not going to tell you in which direction that goes. But oh, look, this movie and this character
Right.
felt the same thing. So that means at least one other person, the director of this film, the writer of this film, has felt that. So I'm not alone. And that's why we make art. Like, that's why we can watch films in Korean and Japanese languages, which are so far removed from our reality, and still relate to it because we feel seen. We, like, across oceans, there are people who are having the same feelings we're having. Like, isn't that wonderful? Like, isn't it wonderful that we have this entertaining, beautiful, heart-filled medium to talk about how we're all
I
the
love
same?
that. Yeah,
That was my TED
absolutely. Yeah,
Talk.
that universality of the emotions and that sense of belonging and that longing for that sense of place and being a part of something and being seen for the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those pieces. I want to say thank you for being here with us today, for being willing to talk about your experiences and the ways that you're showing up and helping other people get to a place of belonging through your new company and coaching. We'll have links to both your website, The Belonging Way, as well as that freebie resource, that Hero's Journey Toolkit for belonging for writers. So I just thank you so much. I wonder if you might be willing to leave us with just any one nugget of advice you have for a writer who is at any stage of their just first big writing project, maybe feeling stuck, maybe not sure what to do. What advice would you have for that person?
Approach it
Oh,
with a
I love
sense of
that.
play.
Yes.
Every time you're stressed is because you're too worried about the outcome. And the moment you switch it in your head, that I'm just here to have fun. That's it. I'm not married to the outcome. You will have so much fun doing it, and all your heart and soul will just pour out into it, and the outcome will be brilliant. I'm not here to tell you that you won't care about the outcome. You're human, you win. But approaching it from the sense of play will just change everything for the better and change how you feel in the process of creation. And that energy will be visible in your writing. So just play. The world is our
I
playground.
love that advice. And it's one of the reasons I chose as my word of the year curiosity, because I wanted to tap into like that less serious, outcome based approach. And I have on the page like, what if?
Yeah.
And the word play is there too. It's like, what if I just tried this? What if I submitted this short
Uh-huh.
story to this contest? What if? I mean, it's all for fun. Kids do it all the time. They're a great role model for how to just play in the world because they're not worried about how they're going to look or what the particular outcome's going to be. So I love that you shared that advice. Thank you so much for being with us today. And listener, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave comments for Ananya. Please look into those socials and those links if that's something you're interested in, and finding that way, that sense of belonging, both in the world and within your writing. And happy writing.